Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending another ISM Lunch and Learn webinar. We are kicking off our November series with our What's New webinars. Today we're going to be looking at What's New in Sage Fixed Assets 2018 that was released last month. And a little later in the month we're going to be looking at What's New in Sage 100 and 100C that was also released in October 2017. So we're getting a quick look at all the new offerings from Sage, as well as some stuff on budgeting, and a good look at Sage Inventory Advisor. Today we're talking with our FAS expert from Sage. We actually have him, we borrowed some resources so we could get everything right on the Sage Fixed Assets 2018. So we're here today with Mr. Wayne Austin from Sage. And a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We will keep all lines on mute while the presentation is going on. We will open up at the end for questions. This cuts down on background noise and does not interrupt the presentation. If you happen to have a question during the presentation, please feel free to click the raise your hand icon or go ahead and type it into the chat window available on your console, and we will go over those at the end. So thanks, everyone. This is the last of our informative webinars. December, we will be doing webinars on year-end processing to get ready for that year-end close, and the ISM webinar series will be dark in January. So with that, I'm going to turn everything over to Wayne. Wayne, thank you very much, and welcome.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We'll do a couple of slides just talking about what those changes are in the Fixed Assets 2018.0 release, and then I will actually jump into the program and show you the impact and what those new features actually look like so you can get a better understanding of it. Okay. So, like I said, overall, basically, the plan for today is to just do a quick walkthrough of what's new for 2018, and then I jump directly into the demo. So the first couple of changes I want to talk about is the Depreciation Module. So one of the big changes done now is, you know, with that tax law change that came out in 2016, I believe it was, mid-year, one of the things we were not able to do is do a mass 168 allowance switch for the AMT book. So that's actually been incorporated now. The additional enhancement to the Depreciation Module is actually to do with the image manager and how you can actually manage multiple images being assigned out to or linked to multiple assets in the system. Additionally, there's a couple of more fields in the book fields now that you don't have to actually run the depreciation expense report to see the depreciation this run data. That's now going to be available. And the big yay from everybody, which of course customers have been requesting for some time, is the availability of a mobile app for an Android device, so an Android smartphone, Android tablet. And of course, everyone will ask, when will the Apple release come out? That will actually be sometime next year, hopefully. We're still awaiting approval on that, and it's still undergoing testing. So we will also have an app for the Apple products, but that will come later. So, of course, you know, we continue to strive to evolve the product because, you know, we want to make it easy for you to enter data, easy to access different views, different reports, and see, of course, a lot of detail about your assets just from even within the asset list view. But of course, additionally, we want to really improve your workflows and how you manage this. So the image manager is going to definitely be impactful on how you handle your workflow with importing images as well. Tax compliant, of course, we do that every year, typically the January release, but if the IRS comes up with anything prior to then, that usually gets incorporated in the October release. Now, the entire barcode scanning workflow is going to be significantly improved with the addition of this Android app, and I'll actually demonstrate that for you as well. Okay. So here's just a quick view of what that looks like as far as being able to make that change to the 168 allowance switch now, where you can do that pretty easily in the system. You can also set the correct 168 default for your particular scenario. Okay. Now, the quick view here of the image manager, so as you can see, one of the things you can now do is drag and drop files through that image manager, or you can actually browse and link and select multiple files at once for import, and you can link a single image to multiple assets actually pretty easily in the system now. Now, the Android mobile app is going to significantly give you some improved choices, especially from a cost standpoint, when looking at how do you handle doing your physical inventories and reconciliation. Prior to this release, of course, you had to use one of the standard barcode scanners, and as we know, those things do get kind of pricey. So being able to now support mobile devices is going to be pretty helpful. I'll give you an example. The phone that I'm going to be using here for this demo is just an unactivated, used Android phone, a Samsung Galaxy S6, which I just paid a few $100s for, as opposed to spending, $1,900 or so or $1,500, depending on the model, on a rugged scanner. So depending on your environment, if you're in a manufacturing environment or a harsher environment, you may need to still get those rugged scanners. But for those of you not in that type of environment, it's going to give you some more cost-effective choices and being able to leverage that hardware and actually use the tracking module and do a proper physical inventory and reconciliation. Okay. Here's just a quick look, and you'll actually be able to see this better once I go into the application of the added fields to the system, where you can now see depreciation this run, and I'll actually give you a better view of that in the application itself. So with that being said, let me switch into my virtual machine here so that I can actually show you that. So first off, I wanted to start off with showing you what that 168 allowance switch looks like now. So of course you can select a group of assets, individual assets, your in-service fiscal, and whatever change you want to make, but you can now do that en masse to all of your assets if you needed to, for example, all complete assets, and do a mass change to that AMT book. So that's actually very nice now. So if I go into an asset detail, I wanted to give you a better look at this information. Now, previously, if I wanted to see what my depreciation this run was in a particular asset, I would have to go up here, run my depreciation expense report, and I can select, that particular asset if I just wanted to see that individual asset and run it and see what that information is going to come out to be. Or, of course, you can run it for all of your assets. But, however, just by being able to see it in the system, let's say you added a new asset, your first month of depreciation, and you want to see what that's looking like, you can actually see it pretty easily. So here's your depreciation expense report, but you can see your prior through date, your current run, and your depreciation, this run amount is for a 1-month cycle. Where you don't have to do that now, you simply just look in the asset detail, and you can actually see my prior through date, my current through date, so I'm looking at a 1-month depreciation run and what my depreciation this run actually is for that asset. So that's actually a very nice feature. Now, other thing I wanted to show you, if, for example, you wanted to add images to an asset, I can easily select, and I'll find one that does not have an image here. I can select multiple assets, for example. I can highlight a group of them, and let's say I wanted to add images to all of those assets, or it could be a much larger group. And it's the same, let's say it's all of the same model of, a computer or tablet or whatever it may be. I can easily select all of the ones that are associated, and I can actually go up here and go into the image manager, okay? And now I can actually choose an image and actually associate it with all of those assets. So even though it's not the correct image, I just want to show you, for example purposes, how easy it is to link an image to multiple assets. So now that has been linked, that single image, as you can see, it's showing that it's linked to 3 assets. You can actually click on it and it'll show you what system number, what they are, that is actually linked to. So that's actually very handy. So now if I go into any of those asset details, I'll be able to actually see that. So let me go back down here. I go back into my image manager here and actually make sure. So 41824. I'm going to go to system number 418, and I'll start with that one. There. So here's all three of them. And as you can see, even though it's not the correct image, but that particular image I've now associated with all three of those assets, which makes it pretty easy. Now, additionally, if you want to add multiple images, I can simply drag the files in here, or I can browse out, select a group of pictures, you know, whatever it is you may have, so that way you can import the images into the system in bulk, and then you can worry about what to link them to afterwards. So it really gives you some different flexibility in how you want to associate the images, you know, based on whatever the particular business need is at that point. So, and there's very good instructions in the updated user's guide, of course, that'll walk you through step by step how to manage all of that. Okay. So, all right, let me actually now jump over to the tracking module, because of course the next important piece here is to look at how is that particular functionality going to improve you doing physical inventories. So all of the other functionality will be the same, by the way. So in the case of you're doing a physical inventory, of course, you can define an inventory, push it out to your standard barcode scanner. You can define an inventory and send it to multiple devices at once. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a sample inventory here. I'm just going to call it test sample 1. I'm going to do a dynamic inventory, and I'm just going to choose a smaller subset of my assets to work from here. I'm just going to load a saved field mapping of what I'm going to send out. So of course, this is going to be the same where you can push out 12 fields out to your handheld scanner or out to a mobile scanner. So now I'm going to choose to prepare readers. So this is where there's differences now. So I'm going to, of course, use a virtual reader. You can have multiple devices here. So if you've got 10 different users, let's say, you may want to name their phones accordingly, their mobile device accordingly, so that you can tell, you know, which one you're pushing it out to. So in my case, I've created one here, Wayne's Galaxy S6. So I'm going to actually use that. Now, this uses Microsoft OneDrive. So if you're decentralized, you have multiple buildings, multiple locations in different states or in different countries, all they will need is internet access from that device, and you'll be able to actually send that inventory list out to them. Of course, with the other way of doing it, of using a physical scanner, you would have to, of course, connect that physical scanner to a workstation with the tracking module so that you could do the inventory as you've done before. So what the system is going to have me do now is go ahead and actually sign into my Microsoft OneDrive account. Oops. Let's see here. And then mine actually uses multi-factor authentication, so you may not be required to do a two-step like I'm doing here, depending on your setup. So depending on your security settings. Okay, and now you can send the same inventory list to multiple devices. So I could have multiple Android phones or tablets I'm sending it out to, as well as multiple physical scanners. So I'm just going to use a virtual reader here so that you can see that this process still works the same. So of course, I would be connecting this scanner to the workstation here, and this is basically just a virtualized scanner, so you can see what that looks like. So if I were to do from my regular handheld scanner like this here, I can actually simulate scanning in an asset like I'm doing my actual inventory. So I'm just going to type in a barcode tag number, search for it, and of course everything is there. I'm going to just save it. And of course you can make changes or create new additions from this size as well. Let's see. I'll do some changes to this one here. So that one is actually not found. I may have deleted that one. Let's try another one here. And I'll actually make a change to this one. Oops, cancel that. And I'll search for one, and I'll actually change something like a room number. Let's say this is actually on the 3rd floor. And I'll just make a couple of changes. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to actually wrap it up for this particular one. So I wanted to just go ahead and walk through that. But now, however, still outstanding will be my Samsung Galaxy S6. So I'm going to switch to my other screen here so that you can see what that screen would look like. Okay, so now this was an old inventory that I've done. So as you can see, there's a green check mark here. So this is an previously completed inventory, but it'll still display the list here. I just can't do anything with it. It'll just show that it was there. Now I can choose to go ahead and download another inventory list. Okay, and here is the one that I've got out there. Now my app, and I'll actually show you what that looks like right here, is available in the Google Play Store right now. Okay, so I can actually, I would actually have launched the app, but since I previously signed into my OneDrive account is why it's actually not asking me to sign in again, because it just hasn't timed out yet. So I'm going to go ahead and select yes. Let's download this. Okay, so now if you notice the difference with a completed inventory versus an incomplete inventory, I have the pencil here so that I can actually go ahead and select it and then be able to actually conduct that inventory. So, of course, I can manually go in here and tell it, hey, change the status to found. I can manually select it. So if I don't want to actually scan a barcode or I can't get to it, I can certainly do that. Click the check box here to save it, or I can scroll down to the end and select save. Okay? So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to actually this time tell it to scan something. So I've got some barcodes here on my desk, and I can actually choose to have auto scan turned off or on. So if you're in an environment where you have a lot of tags on a particular asset, you know, that may not be the inventory tag, you may want to turn it off, or you can simply turn that on and automatically scan everything. So status is updated to found. I'm going to go ahead and save that one. Okay, and let's do another one here. And I'll actually go ahead and maybe select something to edit information-wise. So I'm going to actually change that location and maybe change room number as well. Okay, and then I'll save the changes. And the same would work now, for example, if I wanted to add an image or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and change this to found, but I can actually now choose to take a picture of the asset if I wanted to. So I'm just going to take a picture of my monitor here. Oops. And now it'll attach that image there. Sorry, I didn't have an actual item there that I can scan. And of course, changes are saved. And I can go ahead and, you know, let's just say I'm finished my inventory, even though I didn't scan everything, just in the interest of time. And I'm going to go ahead and say, all right, I'm complete, so I want to upload this inventory. And again, it's just going to send it over the internet to my Microsoft OneDrive account. And you'll see the status changes to a completed inventory. So now there are some other changes to this process on the back end of this, where I actually will now go and receive the data. So I'm going to actually have a list. Let's say I sent this out to 5 different staff members, and some of them are on Android, some are on readers. All of the ones that are on Android device that's connected over OneDrive, I don't have to physically connect them to this workstation. They could be in Switzerland, Canada, wherever in the world. As long as they had internet access, it's going to reconcile with them over the internet. But obviously, if I'm using just your old school, standard scanner, they would have to connect to a workstation that has this tracking software and a tracking database available. So I'm going to go ahead and receive the data from my smartphone first. And you'll see it's downloading the inventory list. And if I was still connected to OneDrive and it hasn't timed out, it'll just go ahead and pull the data. But however, if it's been too long, it may ask me to sign back in. So since that particular device has been completed, the only one now left in my list is actually my virtual reader. So if I had 10 assets here, I have to remember which one I've done. The system knows, hey, you've already received data from that one. These are the only ones remaining. So I'm going to go ahead and receive it from my virtual reader now. Okay, and so now it'll actually let me complete that inventory. So I'm going to go through my reconciliation just to show you a couple of things that are changed. Now, for right now, I'm just going to ignore everything not found because obviously I did not go through and search for all of my assets at that location. So I'm going to just tell it do not reconcile that portion of this. Now, assets with changes. Of course, it will now show, oops, pause that there. Of course, now it will show the assets that were found regardless of which device it came from, right? So I'm going to show you now, here are the things that I changed. The original data, here's what was changed, okay? And this particular one has an image applied. So I can simply now say I can choose to update it with the image, which will be just selecting update. But if I don't want to pull in any new images, I can tell it to update without the image. The other one here, I also changed some information, but I did not attach a new image. So you can see there's actually a row here that shows whether or not an image was added. So you would be able to tell that. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it all to update. Okay. And now there were no new assets. Of course, I could have added assets here, so that would actually also be the same. So the only difference I wanted to point out is the choices will now give you a choice of just updating it with whatever data or updating it without the image, where this is new, because previously you weren't able to add images from the handheld scanners. Okay, so the rest of this, of course, now will be the same as you would normally do, where you can go through your reconciliation report. And of course, if you do in the real world come up with the items that are missing and are not where they're supposed to be, then you can actually export this reconciliation report out to a PDF or Excel, and now you can circulate it to your other sites to say, hey, I'm missing, this computer, tag number such and such. Can you see if it's at your location? And of course, you start the process of identifying where anything that's missing actually is. Okay. Now, of course, if you go to my end here, these are the assets that I found with no changes, as you can see. Okay. There were 3, and then there were 2 that actually made changes to. So it will actually give you that same information, and of course, as always, you can export this out in a variety of formats, PDF, Excel, so on. So, all right, so that actually concludes what I wanted to show as far as the updated features with this. And of course, like I said, in both scenarios, you can add new assets if needed from that, from either device, where it would actually create the new assets. And of course, you'd still be able to apply templates, so that way it would populate all of the information, not just the 12 fields. So, and we can certainly cover templates and some of the other functionality in another webinar, but this particular webinar is just to focus on identifying the changes made with this particular release. So I'd like to thank you for your time this afternoon, and I'm going to pause for a moment to see if anyone has any questions.
I have opened up the phone line, so if there are any questions, please go ahead. I've checked the chat window and the question bar, and I'm not seeing anything there. I'm going to assume there are no questions. Again, if something comes up or you're interested in upgrading to this latest version, please reach out to us. You can always reach me at AM for Account Manager, am@goism.com. I want to thank you, our presenter today, Wayne. Thank you so much for your time and reaching out to assist ISM with this endeavor of introducing the new releases. We really appreciate it, and we thank you. Everyone, thank you for your attendance. Please check our calendar online for our next webinars coming up. Again, we will have Sage Inventory Advisor, What's New in Sage 100 2018, and budgeting for the November webinars. And then in December, we will be following up with our standard year-end processing webinars. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Wayne, thank you again.
All right, thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.